Upon my doctor's recommendation, I will remain in self-isolation for 14 days. I want to be clear, I have no symptoms, and I'm feeling good. And technology allows me to work from home. Of course, it's an inconvenience and somewhat frustrating. We are all social beings, after all. But we have to do this because we have to protect our neighbours and our friends, especially our more vulnerable seniors and people with pre-existing conditions.
That is Canada's Prime Minister, confined to his own home by the coronavirus. These are extraordinary times. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The Prime Minister is not sick, does not have COVID-19, but his wife Sophie Grégoire Trudeau does, and so he's working from home. This pandemic is having a profound impact on all of us, and events are moving fast. Here's where we're at right now. Canadians are advised to avoid all non-essential travel outside the country. Parliament has suspended sitting for at least 5 weeks. The Bank of Canada cut interest rates today to 0.75%. National museums across the country are closing. Europe has been declared the epicenter of the pandemic. And the American president has declared a national emergency. The number of cases in Canada keeps rising. There are now almost 200 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 7 provinces now have cases. Ontario is reporting the biggest jump in new cases, 19 in the past 24 hours. We have lots of ground to cover tonight. Let's start with David Akin in Ottawa and the message from the Prime Minister. David.
That's right, Dawna. It was almost as if to underline the fact that being at home in self-isolation does not mean being inactive. Justin Trudeau, his cabinet, the Bank of Canada, made a blizzard of announcements Friday.
I know that you're worried. You're worried about your health, about your family's health, about your job, your savings, about paying rent, about the kids not being in school. I know that you're concerned about uncertainty in the global economy.
So the government is tackling all those concerns. First, Trudeau added his weight to what other provinces have said and what Canada's top doctors said. Do not travel outside Canada. There were also new travel protocols that will affect all overseas flights to Canada and all cruise ships that want to dock in Canada.
Every order of government is working to stop the spread of the virus. Businesses and citizens are taking precautions. We have outstanding public health authorities who are doing an outstanding job. We will get through this.
Then the Bank of Canada jumped in with an emergency interest rate cut of 50 basis points, bringing the overnight rate down to 0.75%. That followed a 50 basis point rate cut just 2 weeks ago. Finance Minister Bill Morneau pumped $10 billion into new lending programs for business and tweaked the rules that banks have to abide by. That frees up another $300 billion in lending capacity.
As your Minister of Finance, we are going to do whatever it takes to protect Canadians and keep our economy strong.
In the meantime, Trudeau and his cabinet are preparing a financial stimulus package that could be worth between $20 and $40 billion. Trudeau discussed the plan with the premiers on a conference call on Friday afternoon and expects to announce details next week.
No one should have to worry about paying rent, buying groceries, or additional childcare because of COVID-19. We will help Canadians financially.
And finally, Dawna, in a rare show of unity, all political parties agreed to suspend Parliament temporarily. MPs and senators, will not be back here in the Capitol until April the 20th.
All right, David, are Trudeau and his kids sharing the house with Sophie, or has she shut herself away in a separate part of the house in order to reduce passing the virus on to him? And is he being tested?
We talked to Trudeau's aides about Sophie's status, and they were reluctant to tell us much about it. But Trudeau himself did say she's in quarantine while he and the kids are in isolation. The difference there, apparently, the Prime Minister and his kids are interacting, but Sophie is not while she's in quarantine. Now, as for Trudeau being tested,
in terms of advice I've gotten from medical professionals, it was explained to me that as long as I do not show any symptoms at all, there is no value in having me tested.
And experts say that actually saves scarce health resources. No need to take the test until you're symptomatic.
And he is in self-isolation in the meantime. David Akin in Ottawa, thanks. The Prime Minister's wife was in London last week. Sophie spoke at an event for International Women's Day at Canada House. And today, Canada's High Commissioner to the UK, Janice Charette, said she is also self-isolating at home as a precaution, and everyone else who attended the event at Canada House is being contacted. This pandemic is altering all of our lives in ways we never imagined a few weeks ago. That includes the tens of thousands of families who had trips planned for March break. Now we're told all travel outside Canada is a risk and should be avoided. Even the Canadian military has banned all foreign travel and ordered non-essential personnel to stay home. Jeff Semple looks at what Canadians need to know about travel during this pandemic. Jeff?
Well, Dawna, Pearson International is Canada's busiest airport, and this is typically its second busiest day of the year, ahead of March break. This time last year saw more than 140,000 passengers pass through here. But take a look. The picture today is much different.
No lineups at check-in or security for passengers at Pearson. The airport hired extra staff for the spring break rush, but in hindsight, probably didn't need to.
Given the situation with regard to COVID-19, we are expecting and seeing an impact.
Susan Rasmussen's family had tickets to fly to the southern U.S., but decided to stay put.
We didn't want to catch the virus, plus we did not want to bring it back with us.
This Edmonton couple learned about the government's travel advisory from Global News at the airport and promptly canceled their trip.
Things are changing so quickly right now.
But others, like this family heading to Cuba, are packing supplies and taking their chances.
But it is scary. We were much enthusiastic and much excited, and then now we're traveling with a little bit of scare.
But those who do decide to travel abroad may find themselves with an uncomfortable homecoming. Cruise ships with more than 500 passengers will no longer be allowed to dock in Canada. The federal government is asking anyone who travels abroad to report symptoms such as a cough or fever. And those who return from Italy, Iran, or Hubei, China are being told to self-isolate for 14 days.
What we have to remember is that viruses don't know borders.
Some passengers told Global News that their employers had warned them if they travel, they won't be paid for 2 weeks.
Probably within an employer's right to say, I want to take a precaution and not allow these people to, and not have these people work for a period of time. But if you make it an unpaid layoff, that's going to be a problem.
And passengers arriving here to Canada can also expect more disruption in the weeks ahead. The government plans to restrict the number of airports in Canada that can receive international passengers and introduce new screening measures for those arriving from abroad. Dawna?
Jeff Semple in Toronto, thanks.
There's so much information surrounding coronavirus out there now. We know you have questions. Email your questions at globalnews.ca. Tune in to Global National or go to globalnews.ca/coronavirus now to find the answers.